My dad told me a story recently that I've been really wanting to share. This is from back when he was a kid in Mexico. When my dad was a kid, he and my grandpa went to my grandpa's land to prepare the soil for planting crops. Bored, my dad wandered off to a nearby stream where he saw a bunch of human-like dolls playing around in the water. He said they looked like adults, only smaller, with proportions like dolls. They splashed around in the water, and at times it looked like they were walking on it. They signaled at him to come and play with them, and my dad ran over excitedly. He said he played with them for a while when my grandpa noticed he had wandered off and went to find him. When my grandpa found my dad seemingly playing alone by the stream, getting all wet, he got super mad and dragged him away. Apparently, my grandpa and grandma were never able to see the duendes whenever my dad would point them out. My dad still recalls looking back while my grandpa yanked him away and seeing the duendes waving goodbye at him. After that, my dad started seeing the duendes around the house. They pop out from behind the walls during dinner, and my dad would try to feed them scraps of food, much to my grandparents' annoyance. Eventually they got worried and took him to a local herbalist. She did a little ritual and told him to keep a cigarette behind his ear for a week, and then the duendes were gone. He never saw them again. So, this was 6 years ago, and I was 12 at the time. I had just gotten back from school, had my lunch, and was watching TV, as that was a thing back then. My parents were out, and my grandma was sleeping in her room. Out of nowhere, randomly, my peripheral vision picks up something from the room next to the TV. I tried ignoring it because, well, I was trying to enjoy my favorite cartoon, and soon I felt something move in the room. My eyes turn and meet the teeth of a person. I try to see what or who that is, and all I could see is a black figure smiling at me with its teeth wide open. It was a woman by the look of it. And I, for one, was shocked and I couldn't really move. I was frozen. I kept looking at it for a solid 5 seconds, and then she started moving towards me. That's when I was like, fuck this shit. I got up, ran towards it, and slammed the door, and ran into our backyard. I couldn't even get my shit together. I couldn't breathe. I kept staring at the house, checking every door and every window to see if something was following me. When I finally calmed down, which took about 10 minutes, I went inside. The door was still closed, so that was a good sign. I went and checked on my grandma, who seemed to still be sleeping. I wanted to wake her up, but I just couldn't. I don't know why. So I just sat in front of the TV, staring at my favorite show, trying to ignore the fear and everything that just happened, and just praying for it to be a nightmare. But I knew it was real. After a while, my parents came home and I felt safer, and called my friend and told him everything. I strangely forgot about the incident. I don't know how, and never told my parents about until a month ago. A horror movie triggered the memory of the figure with teeth, or whatever it was, and my parents refused to believe it as I hadn't told them about it for 6 years, and they believe it was just a dream. My friend remembers it, and it was very real. In 1999, I was 7 years old, playing in the woods with my friend Charlotte. We were standing at the end of a big log in the woods when I noticed movement in my peripherals. I tried focusing my periphery to catch a detailed look. My heart skipped a beat when I could make a group of little people looking up at me as well. I was frozen in the pose I was playing in. After a few seconds, I realized Charlotte had stopped narrating out play and was frozen in place as well, staring at me, but focusing on them. I'm pretty sure they were dressed because it didn't look like they were all naked. I could tell they knew we were aware of them, and they dispersed as Charlotte moved her eyes. We didn't talk about it until we were in our house. We weren't afraid, just confused on our walk home. We wrote about what we saw before talking about it, to see if we saw the same thing. Unfortunately, both our descriptions were so vague, but clothed, less than a foot for sure. One thing we were positive of was to mind our business and not to go searching, which is what our instinct would have usually been. We thought we found a colony of little people in the woods, but the fact that our reaction was to leave and not even talk about it behind closed doors, and still not even talk about it but write it, I don't remember being too frightened. In fact, we kinda just accepted it and moved on, with a new taste of what this world/universe is capable of. I watched The Indian and the Cupboard later in life, which reminded me of these little people, but I no longer saw them by then. Charlotte and I would talk about seeing things out of the corner of our eyes, but could never figure out what it was. Although Charlotte was different. Her and her dad were huge hippies. Tire in a swing, no TV, and her imagination was so wildly magnificent that it made my mind radiate. I always thought that maybe her narration of our play was so powerful and energetic that we could manifest and see the same thing. Little people were never playing any parts in either of our imaginations. In fact, when we both confirmed what each other saw, we were kind of in awe that we never even dreamt of tiny people in this universe.